I love the passage in the Bible where Abraham bargains with God. It is one of my absolute most favorite passages in the entire Bible. If I can find 50 righteous people, will you spare the city? Really? Okay then, what about 45? What about 40? How about 30? How about 20? Finally, Abraham gets God all the way down to 10 and knows better than to press his luck by trying to go any lower. So now, for the sake of 10 righteous people, God will spare the city. That was some bargain. Okay, I take my hat off to Abraham for securing such a successful end to the bargain. But still, Abraham, what an idiot you are. Who bargains with God? This is the same God who at the end of the book of Job, after declaring Job more righteous than his ridiculous friends, still turns around and says to Job, "Where were you when I formed the heavens and the earth?" Who bargains with the creator of the universe? Now, in all honesty, don't we all? Who among us has not tried to bargain with God at some time? Please don't let me get caught in this lie, and I promise forevermore to tell the truth. Please cure my cancer, and I promise to eat right and live carefully for the rest of my life. I know I'm driving too fast, God, but I'm late and I need to get there. Please don't let me get in an accident, and I promise to obey the speed limit always in the future. Most of our bargains with God have a kind of tit-for-tat format. If you will do this for me, God, then I will do that for you. Give me what I want, and then I'll give you what you want, or at least what I think you would want. In most of our bargains, we want God to do something for us first, and then we will do something for God. Abraham's bargain is different. Abraham makes no promise to God to change Abraham's behavior if God spares the people of Sodom. The bargain here is not about an exchange of favors. It is about uncovering God's nature. Are you such a God that you would destroy the righteous along with the wicked? If there are some righteous people there, won't you spare everyone? The answer is clear. Our God would prefer to let the wicked live so long as there are a few righteous among them. Even 10 righteous people will be enough to spare the city of Sodom. Love and generosity will triumph over wrath, even though the wrath is absolutely deserved. Now, this passage is the prelude to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Their sin is very grave, declares God at the beginning of this bargain. But what is that sin? Throughout history, churches have often, way too often, interpreted the sin of Sodom as homosexuality. I hope everyone at Parkside knows that such an interpretation is flatly wrong, period. Recall the story. 2 strangers appear in Sodom. Lot insists that they come and accept his hospitality. The men of the city surround Lot's house and demand that he produce the strangers, who of course are angels in disguise, so that the villagers can know them, a phrase that does imply sexual concourse. So I suppose it is somewhat understandable that interpreters through the centuries would think that the sin of Sodom has something to do with homosexual behavior. So much so, in fact, that people of homosexual orientation came to be called sodomites in some circles. But look again at the text. What the dwellers of Sodom proposed was not based on homosexual desire, and it was certainly not consensual homosexuality. It was plain and simple gang rape. Rape is wrong, and gang rape is wrongness multiplied manyfold. So the men of Sodom were indeed sinful, but not because they were homosexual, but because they proposed gang rape. What we really should be horrified about in this story is that Lot, in an effort to protect the strangers to whom he has given hospitality, promptly turns around and offers his virgin daughters to be gang raped instead. Hello? This is a part of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah that usually gets ignored, and rightly so, I might say. To our ears, Lot's offer of his daughters is horrific. No wonder feminists, including me, find the Bible a difficult and discouraging text, and some reject it altogether, while others of us struggle to find interpretations that make sense out of these seemingly egregious passages. Where is the father love that would protect these precious girls? To throw your daughters out to be gang raped is monstrous at best. Sad to say, the trafficking of young girls does in fact still go on today in our world, but it should not. Lot's day was different from ours. We can make perhaps some small portion of sense out of Lot's action, only if we recall that women were basically property in ancient Israel. They were often used as bargaining chips in hostile transactions. So in short, Lot was offering to give up his own property rather than to evict the strangers who had come under his care. This makes a modicum of sense if we recall how utterly important were the rules about hospitality in ancient Israel. Hospitality to the stranger was absolute. It took precedence over everything. This, and this alone, makes it understandable that Lot would offer up his own daughters instead of the strangers who came under his roof and therefore under his protection. I said it makes it understandable. I did not say it makes it ethically acceptable. But Lot's actions also make clear that the sin of Sodom has nothing to do with consensual homosexuality. It was proposed violation of strangers, lack of hospitality, lack of attending to the basic demands of God. Indeed, recall that God was already very angry with Sodom before this incident of proposed gang rape ever happened. God was already ready to destroy the city. That was the whole reason Abraham was bargaining with God. And why was God so angry with Sodom? Certainly not because of any consensual homosexuality that might be found there. Ezekiel tells us exactly why God was so angry. Ezekiel says, "This was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy." That's it, folks. Pride, ease, and excess without helping those who have less. This is the sin of Sodom. Not sex, not homosexuality, but pride, failure to help the poor, and seeing the stranger not as a precious gift, but as a thing to be used and abused. The story of Sodom is not a story about homosexuality. It is a story about pride and humility, about greed and wealth and failure of hospitality, about welcoming the stranger and seeing that strangers in our midst are in fact angels in disguise. It's a story about a city so corrupt that not even 10 righteous men could be found there. It's a story about a God so loving that even 10 righteous people would have saved the entire city. In short, when churches use the story of Sodom and Gomorrah as evidence that God condemns homosexuality, they are not telling the truth. Churches have been lying for generations. Let's stop the lies and tell the truth. The truth is that every one of us is different from every other one in lots of different ways. And everyone will bring gifts and burdens into our midst. Today is the last Sunday of Pride Month, and it is, in the United Church of Christ, Open and Affirming Day, the official day of being open to the gifts and burdens that each person brings, and to affirm the joys that we may find in company with those whose sexuality is not expressed in typical heterosexual form. In honor of Open and Affirming Day, I chose not to use the official lectionary text today, but to return to this very important story in the Bible that has an unfortunate history of being interpreted in a way that brings a lie to the story of God's love. And while I will not blame Sodom for all the new laws that ban medical treatment for transgender youth, I will say that there are a lot of lies being told today about how easy it would be for transgender youth to wait until they are 18 to do their gender transition. We need to stop all this lying. God doesn't want it. Right before this sermon, we sang a wedding song. When love is found and hope comes home, sing and be glad that two are one. In the Roman Catholic Church, marriage is a sacrament. Now, we don't do that in Protestant churches, but it's a sacrament in the Roman Catholic Church because it is understood that marriage, that special love between two people, can be a place where God's love is manifest in a very special way. Where love is found, hope comes home. Love is often found between man and woman. We have some beautiful examples of that in this church. I admire and respect all of you who have long and good marriages, who have been through thick and thin together, and have found that Easter joy of which our hymn sang. But love is also found between man and man, or woman and woman, or between trans and non-trans, or trans and trans. Love can be found in all kinds of ways, and whenever it is, a space is made for God to enter and for hope to come home. At Parkside, every week we reaffirm our commitment to welcome and love everyone in the LGBTQ plus community. I always kind of wanted to be a plus person. I like that idea. We pledge to offer hospitality, extravagant hospitality even, we say. We are trying our very best to be the church that does what Sodom should have done, to give of our excess, to help those who have less than we do, to be humble, to welcome the gifts brought by the stranger, and to protect the stranger, to help wash away the pain and anger and tears and grief and despair caused by churches that tell people it is not okay to love whom you love. We try here to offer a safe space, a space for healing, a space for rejoicing, a space for recognizing the incredible gifts that gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender and queer and intersex people bring to any community wise enough to be open and affirming. I love the wild geese that fly over our heads yelling at us all the time. Being here in Sacramento, it does remind me of the time when I lived in Canada. I love the Canadian geese as they fly overhead yelling at us. Mary Oliver wrote a poem entitled Wild Geese, and the poem starts this way. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. What a beautiful thought. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Does it matter whether that love is for a man or a woman? What does it matter whether it's between man and man, woman and woman, transgender, cisgender, gay, straight? Where love is found and hope comes home, a window for God's love is opened. But what about those of us who don't have a partner, who don't have such a love in our lives? Maybe we never had it, or maybe we had it once but are divorced or lost our special someone. Mary Oliver's poem concludes with this: whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. May we at Parkside sing and rejoice whenever love is found and hope comes home, no matter what sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation may be at play. And may we be like the wild geese, calling to all those who have felt loss, loneliness, or despair, and announcing over and over their place among us in the family of things. We have a God whose nature is so loving and generous that God will save the city for the sake of 10 righteous people. Yes, there is violence and trouble all around us in the world. But yes, there is also God's promise that love is a portal through which God enters our world so that everyone has a place in the family of things. As we end Pride Month, let us celebrate that love. Amen.